Muy buenas tardes y bienvenidos otro miércoles más a Connected at Home, el blog donde te traemos excelentes noticias de empresarismo, tecnología y otros temitas más por ahí también que surgen cuando vamos dialogando. Sofía, muy buenas tardes.
Hola, Gino. ¿Cómo estás? Muy bien, ¿y tú?
Muy bien, muy contento. Otro miércoles más aquí con todo nuestro público, obviamente con tu compañía, que siempre es bien agradecida. Gracias por siempre compartir este espacio con todos nosotros.
Claro
nada, ready
sí.
para hablar de cositas interesantes.
Menos drenantes que toda la política, ¿verdad?
No.
Debate y...
Sí, oye, gracias a Dios yo me salvé del debate de anoche, no lo vi.
Bueno, yo creo que fue difícil verlo completo.
Sí,
No
hoy
sé
vi
terminó.
unos pedacitos y esto, wow, esto estaba como que grave para ver.
Sí.
Esto que yo dormí tranquilo, yo dormí relax.
Muy bien. Qué bien, pues aquí en espera, ¿verdad?, a noticias de la gobernadora, porque prontamente expira también la orden ejecutiva vigente al momento. Ciertamente han subido los casos, así es que esperaremos, asumo que más restricciones, aunque obviamente pues el sector comercial también tiene expectativa de poder seguir desarrollando sus negocios, ¿no?
Definitivo.
Esperemos a ver qué pasa en los próximos días.
Estamos tambaleando en una cuerda floja a ver qué va a suceder. Esto, quizás en noticias un poquito más positivas, yo sé que en los últimos días en los debates locales se ha hablado mucho del programa de conectividad que están teniendo los estudiantes del sistema de escuela pública, y tengo un poquito de inside information.
Comparte, qué bueno.
He sido parte de unas reuniones que quizás no se ha concretado todavía, pero se está dialogando de un plan de vales para estos estudiantes. Entonces, el gobierno local, con unos fondos federales que tienen identificados, van a proceder a proveerle unos vales a los estudiantes para que puedan costear conectividad a Internet con el proveedor que ellos deseen por el largo del año escolar hasta que finalice el año escolar. Así que esos son los planes. Así que enhorabuena, porque son muy necesarios, porque hay muchos estudiantes que no tienen conectividad al Internet en su casa o están usando un teléfono para ver las clases, o que es bastante difícil.
Claro, que no es la misma experiencia que están teniendo todos los niños en Puerto Rico y ciertamente no la mejor. Así que...
Pero buenas noticias dentro de todo lo demás que está pasando y un poco de alivio para nuestro grupo estudiantil, que tras que están en un sistema difícil, porque estudiar a remoto yo creo que debe ser bastante complicado, no poderse enfocar y todo eso, pues muchos de ellos carecen de la conectividad a Internet que necesitan para poder atender a sus clases. Así que enhorabuena. Excelente noticia. Nada, hablando de buenas noticias, vamos a traer a nuestra invitada, que nos va a hablar de cosas muy interesantes y ya me dio hambre antes de
nos va a dar hambre a todos.
Así que vamos a pasar con nuestra invitada Leslie Padró de Global Schools. ¿Cómo te encuentras?
Pues hola, ¿cómo estamos? Permítame hablar en inglés contigo porque yo no quiero dañar tus orejas con mi acento.
No problem, Leslie.
English. Hi, Leslie. Thank you so much for accepting our
invitation. So many bad accents that you can hear in a time. So thank you so much for hosting me, Sophia and Gino, and it's a pleasure to all of you out there as well to have you listening.
Thank you, Leslie, for being here, and welcome. So, you know, this vlog is about entrepreneurship, about, you know, overcoming obstacles and basically working your way around them, especially during this pandemic. So we want to hear your story and what you can tell us about yourself and about your business you're representing. So please, the floor is yours.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, born and raised, and I started out my professional career as a journalist. I've written for the Atlanta Business Chronicle, the Gwinnett Daily Post, such big publications, and I was able to work at CNN as a writer for a time. And I decided that I wanted to shake things up a bit and to practice the Spanish language a little bit more, so that work on my gringa accent. So in 2008, I moved to Old San Juan, and the idea was to live in Old San Juan for about a year in Puerto Rico, and then just go back. You know, I was 28, no mortgage, no kids, freewheeling, and I ended up having a whole lot of adventure, and I did do some freelancing, but I also had a friend of mine who noticed that my now husband and I, we were eating out a lot in Old San Juan, and we got to know the city so well, and we would go here for flan, but then go here for mojito, and mofongo here, tostones. And my friend traveled often to Seattle, and she took actually now a friend's food tour there, a Savor Seattle food tour, and she came back to Old San Juan, and she said, "Oh, you've got to start a food tour here in Old San Juan." And I was like, "What is a food tour?" And apparently it's, and what ours morphed into, it's 3 hours, and you go to 4 to 5 different restaurants. It's a progressive meal. There's historical, architectural, and cultural information along the way. And we're going to be featuring iconic dishes of whatever location we're providing our tour in, because you're not coming to Puerto Rico to have a burger, probably, right?
Yeah.
For the mofongo, and is that the national dish? Hopefully, yes. So flash forward, it's been 10 years, and we've expanded into 3 other locations. We've got food tours in Atlanta, Georgia, my native city, in St. Thomas, USVI, St. Martin. We visit the Dutch and the French side, and of course here in Old San Juan, that's where we're headquartered. Yeah.
Wow, nice. So can you tell us a little bit about those starting points or starting years where maybe some obstacles that you needed to overcome by building up your business, and especially with the tour, I will assume that there were kind of a little bit of obstacles there. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I think any entrepreneur is just going to have this natural scrappiness about them. So
I love that natural scrappiness. Yes.
I think it's a moxie of some sort, just to even just go out and do it at all. I don't know. So I was challenged in 2009 with basically making a food tour without having ever taken one.
Okay.
So at that point in time, there were no food tours in all of the Caribbean. Actually, I did my journalist research, and I Googled food tours. And at that point in time, in about 2008 to early 2009, they were only in the major cities, so Chicago, Seattle, LA, Charleston, South Carolina. And I did what any good journalist, I suppose, does. I got on the phone and I basically interviewed these owners, and I asked a bunch of questions, and I just researched online. Okay. And Angela Shin, who's the CEO of Savor Seattle, actually asked so many questions. She was like, "So I need to start charging you a consultation fee if we're going to interview." So a lot of it is just figuring it out. I mean, you're going to make mistakes, and then you're going to learn from them. And they can be legal mistakes. They can be just small, how you let somebody go that's not working out as a tour guide. All of those things, just the school of hard knocks. But the key is, I think, just keep going. Talk to as many other entrepreneurs and friends and people you can look up to. Because I think also it's important where you're getting the information, because I did receive some bad information of how to let somebody go, for instance. Okay. And then later I realized that was bad information. And just because you're a business owner doesn't mean, that you necessarily have the right way. Yes. So I think, don't just take advice from anybody is one thing. And then just keep going. I mean, when we expanded into St. Martin, I had a 5-month-old and I was breastfeeding. So, okay. I mean, and I took him with me. And I took a family friend who was sort of like my nanny, and so I would schedule time when she would be with Nicolas, and I would pump and have her with the milk, and then I would run out and have these meetings in St. Martin, and she would be at this resort with him, and then come back, and you have to be very structured and scheduled. Sophia, I'm sure you know all about that. As a mom, right. You have to be all of your stuff, but it's not impossible. No, it's not impossible. That's the point.
On the contrary.
Yeah. You just have to have the moxie, I guess. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Amazing. How did you expand to other locations after St. Thomas? How did that go? How was that experience? Bringing your concept to St. Thomas and then growing from there, and then finally getting to the mainland in Atlanta.
I think the key is to kind of know your business and know who your customers are and why they're choosing you, and what is your problem to solve in any location. So our problem to solve in St. Martin was people really liked going on the cruise ships come in on the Dutch side, but everybody wants to go to the French side. but not everybody knows where to go, how to do that. Oh, the language. Oh, do I need a passport? So you need to. The problem to solve we created there was we're going to have a bus tour. It's going to be sightseeing. It'll be 4 hours. We're going to go to 4 restaurants on both the Dutch and the French side. And you're going to have picturesque views. So you sort of wrap it all in, and then there's nothing like that out in the market. And they're like, wow, where did this come from? This is really cool and new and different. And we're going to do it. People love the 2-for-1. You're getting the history and the culture and the food all in one tour.
That's awesome.
And then again, serving people that take our food tours, they want local cuisine. They don't want to eat a burger in, paradise. They want to have the local food. So. Just knowing that and giving them what they want.
Were you always had some sort of a entrepreneurial spirit or kindling, or that was kind of developed later with this venture?
My father, growing up, my father owned his own business. He owned a carpet cleaning and a reconstruction company, and so I always, from an early start, saw him going out and just being real proud of what he created. And my mom was a realtor, and so she sort of was like a free agent, if you will.
Right.
I saw her going out. So I always thought I always wanted to be a writer, and I studied English, and I got a master's in mass communications. And I always thought, and like I said, I was a journalist. But I think what I really enjoy is connecting people and sharing a story. And I think that, I can do that with the food tour. I'm connecting with vendors, restaurants. I'm connecting with the guests. I'm connecting with the guides, the team. And I think, you can create an experience and a story, which it's communications, which I mastered in. So I feel like I'm still, I'm not a journalist per se, but I'm still conveying something, I think, of importance, a location's culture and their history.
That's amazing. Well, in a way you are, right? Because you still have to do all of this history preparation. And I assume that sometimes you change, facts that you find out about in each of the tours. So that's, how does that process actually work? How do you train? Do you have any historians or history buffs as tour guide?
Well, how presumptuous of me as an American to come in Puerto Rico and be like, I'm going to start a food tour, So I did a lot of reading of history, and my husband's Puerto Rican, so I talked with his family a lot. And I actually had the pleasure of meeting a lot of people in the field that were, historians. Ricardo Alegria. I actually went into his home, and he's still alive. I toured with him. His house is amazing and amazing. Beautiful. He had this huge biblioteca, the library, and he had like all these pictures, like him with Bill Clinton, and you're just like, oh my gosh, not worthy. But yeah,
he's an institution for sure here on the island.
Amazing. And so, yes, reading books constantly, but and also then now collaborating with tour guides as well, who we work with, who are also sometimes history buffs, or they majored in Puerto Rican history, but always learning, always growing, and the same thing in all the other islands as well. But you have to be careful too, because you don't want too much history. Then people are like, oh, I didn't know much about the food, or it was too history. It's this balance with the food.
What has been the most interesting fact you have learned in both fields, in the food and history, of any of the cities that you are working with?
That's a great question. I think what's interesting is the huge influence of the Western Africans in all of the locations that have come, and how they have really infused their methods of cooking and their flavors. And for instance, in St. Martin, they're using a lot of curries as well, which they have a large Indian population that's coming over. There's actually a large Indian population in general in the Caribbean. And so that's an interesting influence. As far as Puerto Rico, I like the mofongo a lot, because mofongo, well, it tastes delicious, but it's really the greatest mix-up of the three races that make a Puerto Rican. It's the Western African way of cooking the plantain. It's to fry it. The pilon is used the way the Tainos, the natives, were using it. And they would mash their ingredients into a paste, or into, they would use the mortar pilon. And then you had the Spanish influence, who sort of brought over the plantain that they were cultivating in the Canary Islands and also in the Dominican Republic. They realized that grew well there, and And a lot of things in the Caribbean were brought over, foods, that are now we consider, from here,
right.
Plantains, mangoes, a lot of items. Here originally in Puerto Rico, it was mainly just root vegetables, yautía, yuca, yame, and then the Tainos would eat, fresh fish and anything they could catch. But it really, rice and beans came much later. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I do agree.
How have you managed to be the top food tour in all of these locations? Because if you look yourself up in TripAdvisor, your ratings are unparalleled, right? And so how do you continue to do that year after year? You've been in the market 10 years now. How do you make sure that curation of those partners that you have in those restaurants always is done on point, and that they maintain that quality and that bar? I imagine it must be difficult.
It's all about the team. I mean, honestly, it's we can't live on an island all by ourselves, even when we're on an island. It's all about the team and just getting the right group of people together that have the same passion and quest for perfection. And our finance director and our operations director and the tour guides and the restaurants, they're all part of it. We're all creating an experience, and it's really the collaboration of all of us working together as a team. Our locations manager, Anki in St. Martin, says teamwork is dream work, and it's so true. And I think that's another thing that I've definitely learned as a modern day entrepreneur that I would take away would be, you're not the boss. It's not a dictatorship. It's not about you knowing everything and then you telling people down the line or whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't think that in 2020 you're going to go super far with that mentality. And I think that I've had to learn that because, my father's company from the 70s and the 80s was just run very differently. And I saw a different type of boss in him than I am as I've grown into, and a lot of that has been making a lot of mistakes and learning and having, books maybe that one can read, although I can't name one particular book, that jumps out. But I think just really respecting and valuing people that you work with on your team at a real human level and not just seeing them as cogs. I think that has to happen for you to really move forward, at least in a modern business.
How did the pandemic and the lockdown impacted the business?
Wonderful. No, we had just recovered from Hurricanes Irma and Maria, which, by the way, in 2017, I had 3 food tour companies, and they were all hit by 2 different hurricanes within 2 weeks of each other.
Well, you're still standing. You didn't even mention that as your greatest challenge.
Incredible. But I opened up Atlanta in 2018 as a way of, maybe getting out of the hurricane region. Okay. So that was good, right? You kind of adapt and move. I was like, so I really shouldn't open right now in any of the, strips that might get hit by hurricane. So, the first quarter of this year was outstanding. We had surpassed even pre-hurricane levels. I mean, and I also credit a lot of that to the DMO of Puerto Rico, who's done a fantastic job with promoting this island as a destination. I think they really have their stuff together. And I know that we will bounce back as a destination in the travel industry because they're a big part of that. But we had rebounded really, really well. And I think that's a great example of just not getting too comfortable, even for 2 months, where we had recovered from the hurricanes finally financially and whatnot, and exceeded, the metrics. It's about always being, I don't want to say paranoid, but just don't loosen your purse strings, because you never know when the next disaster is going to strike.
Yes.
But I think that actually helped us in the pandemic, because we were already running a pretty tight ship and we already had some emergency money already built up. And I think it's just having really big debates within the team and cutting. And sometimes, as they say in writing and editing, you have to kill your babies. Like, in writing, they say, you write a beautiful sentence, but then sometimes you have to cut it. And so that's writing. But then in the business side, it could be like usually it's a developmental thing I want to do, like, oh, I want to do this cool thing, or I want to do something with social media or whatever. And then the team's like, do we really need that? And I'm like, we don't, but it would be so great. And they're like, let's put that on for the next 6 months, for the next 12 months. And so it's also having a team that can check you and that can, so that was really difficult. But you have to also be open to receiving, I think, criticism and constructive feedback to grow. We have to be adults about this. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
So then I think what happened with the lockdown was that I saw with a lot of my other food tour operator friends, everybody was just, first of all, sort of like freaking out and panicking. And I think that we all learned, we all work remotely anyway. We didn't have an office. We work from our homes, and my team really enjoys that. And for years, I've been like, do we need to get an office? Do you really want to do that? And actually, Sophia, you remember we were at Piloto for a time?
Yeah.
But I saw like the value in working remote. And I know we're all doing that now, but I've been doing that from the beginning. I mean, we would have our meetings in Old San Juan or wherever location. Like I would travel quite frequently to visit our team on the ground in whatever location. But I just found the more overhead you can slash, the better. And that's going to be for any business. So we were really well positioned for that. But then your question, I think for me, my question was, will people ever want to take a food tour ever again?
Mm-hmm.
Will people, you don't know.
So we were totally for your business.
We were totally shut down for March, or like the second half of March, April, May, June, and then July. I think we were able to reopen in Atlanta, but I was down from 3 tour guides to 1, but it was slow anyway. And then in August we reopened July and August. Yeah, we reopened in St. Thomas and San Juan. St. Martin, we've had to sort of mothball until the cruise ships come back because that's just frankly the business. But I've been really amazed that people still do want to take food tours, even in a pandemic, even with a mask on and even with a check of the temperature and even with the hand sanitizer and all that nonsense. So for me, I felt like, wow, this will come back. We just have to survive between now and whenever this pandemic is controlled. But that for me, there's like all these mental steps that you have to take to realize that that if you can just survive and make it, it'll come back.
A part of that survival is the planning that you guys made with that kind of emergency fund and all the steps measures you had in place just to be able to survive.
Well, it's that, but also getting right on the gun and applying for SBA loans and just seeing what other grants you can do. And just, that was my new job when the pandemic hit. My new job was, how can we get funds? And just being aware of that as well. And then not just, not panicking and just crawling into a ball.
Right.
Really being active and saying, what can I do? How can I move this forward?
And talking about forward, what's the next? What's coming next down the pipeline?
That's a good question. We definitely want to expand in other locations, and we have that down, that we're going to be going to other locations. This is just a mere bump in the road for that. Right now, we're honestly just focused on just keeping her running, keeping the wheels turning. And I have in San Juan, 6 guests per tour guide, very slow. Mm-hmm. The volume we're doing in a week is what we would maybe do in a day.
Wow.
It's it's horrible. It's really bad. I just can't sugarcoat it for you. But the key is to keep the guides active and not in a sleep mode where they're not actively giving tours, because it's a lot of information and they're going to forget it and they're going to get out of, like when you're exercising and you stop for several weeks or months, and then when you go back into it, you're just
a lot harder.
It's a lot harder. And the same thing with the restaurants, and getting the plates out on time and, it's flavors and just knowing we're there and that we're not going to ever, move away from working with them. They really appreciated that after the hurricanes hit in September, we were down in October, November, but by mid-December, we were bringing them cruise ship tours.
Okay.
And a lot of other companies that didn't have contracts, they just weren't able to operate. So we like to think of ourselves as just, whatever scenario, we're just always going to actively be there unless there's a, the governor says like we can't or something.
Right.
Obviously we're not going to break the law, but everything legally that we can within our power, we're going to do to keep running.
And you're helping the community, obviously the business around it.
That's positive. Yes, and the guides too. I mean, I like to, they get the tip money and they get our money in the restaurants. I think it's an economy, right? Like we all win and we're all running. That's the shared economy that we live in. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Leslie, thank you so much for your time on this vlog. We're, time's up. Unfortunately, love to continue talking about this. But we always like to end our vlog by asking our entrepreneurs and our guest speakers, what advice do you have for other entrepreneurs out there that are listening, how you got back up from hurricanes, pandemic, in an industry that, is really hit hard by these natural disasters? What can you tell others and even just people that are listening to us right now?
Aww. Coffee in the morning and kava in the afternoon. So they're like, seriously, that sometimes helps. No, and thank you both so much for, creating this forum and having this experience that we all can, huddle into and be a part of. I think, honestly, for me, it's about just knowing there's always going to be another day and just putting one foot in front of another. And I think that especially now, when so many of us are doing virtual homeschool and so many of us are limited in our capacity to really work, I think sometimes we have to just understand that sometimes just a little bit is going to be enough. I think sometimes entrepreneurs, we can really put a lot on our shoulders and we have these big dreams and expectations for ourselves and we can be really hard on ourselves. But just knowing that, sometimes just a little bit, it's going to be fine. And that I think it will get better and this will not be the rest of our life. So there's hope.
Thank you very much, Leslie. Patience. I always am a big supporter of patience within the business. So yes, it's part of it. Thank you very much, Leslie, for giving us the great story about your company. And I wish you and your team all the success in the world and continue hustling and chugging along.
Thank you.
We have the contact information for Flavors Food Tours. So please, anyone that interested in the 3-hour binge and with a little bit of history, please go ahead and schedule a food tour or have some mofongo there. So thank you.
And we go by Pinoto 151 too. Right?
Yes,
nice. Awesome.
The tour is fantastic. I cannot recommend it more. I've taken it personally. It's amazing. The food is great, first of all, but also the history. Treat yourself to a tour these days. Support your local community. Support Flavors of San Juan. And support Leslie.
Super. Yes.
Thank you so much, Leslie.
I will sign up pretty soon.
Please do. Gina, you can come. It's all good. Go with Sophia. I treat you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Leslie, thank you again for your time and have an excellent afternoon and an awesome weekend.
Y gracias por tu inglés.
Tu español está muy bien. Así
Gracias,
que,
Leslie.
Una postura, pero nada. Hablemos.
A todas las personas que estuvieron en nuestro blog, muchas gracias por conectarse. Este ha sido Connected at Home. Excelentes noticias para todos y muy buen fin de semana y excelente semana también, que todavía no acabamos. See you next Wednesday. Bye bye.